Hi, so I'm talking to Emily from Airbus this morning. Great to see you again, Emily. I know I only saw you briefly last week up at Estelle, where you yourself were entering a period of transition by visiting your apprentices whilst they were on their course. And it was great to see you fully immersed in that experience. Just tell me a bit about how that felt for you.
Yeah, fantastic. Immersed is a good word, actually, because at one point I was actually immersed about 3 feet underwater in the middle of a gorge. So that's a good way to describe it. But, it was excellent, amazing experience. First time I've been involved in Outward Bound, and the apprentices got so much out of it. I mean, huge kudos to the team up there. They needed it more than ever, really, because they've spent so much time behind screens, and they really got stuck in and got a lot from it. So yeah, rewarding experience all round.
And did it give you a bit of a brief intro into an understanding of their world, sort of on the face in the cold face of
Well,
it?
yes, yeah. And I mean, it was a big group, and it was a very mixed group, and it was an eye opener for me as well. I mean, a lot of the apprentices that I was with in my group never get to do this kind of thing. I mean, let alone the gorge walking and the canoeing and the abseiling. Some of them don't even really venture out of their bedrooms. They don't even go to the countryside before. They've not been to the countryside before. It was a real experience for them to do something like that. So it gave me an insight into a little bit into their worlds, and yeah, it was quite an eye opener, I would say, from all sides.
Yeah, and I think we watched the presentations together on their experiences at the end of the week, and some very solid learning obviously had happened. But clearly, with all that's going on today in the world, both for the apprentices and for us as businesses, it is very different. And I just wondered what you're seeing at Airbus as the reality for young people entering your world at the moment in Airbus. Is it very different?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's clear that not just in the early careers arena, but for everybody, our resilience has been tested to the extreme in the last couple of years. Those human connections that we were so used to and took for granted had gone for 2 years. We were sat behind screens, and it has been, we're so used to now communicating via writing chat messages and writing emails and things, rather than actually physically seeing people and speaking to people. So it's changed a lot. We've seen some real challenges with our young people joining the organisation. Overall, across the board, we've seen increases in mental health issues, understandably. A lot of our young people are living away from home for the first time. They've had enormous amount of disruption throughout their academic and school careers. They were joining at a time when colleges were being opened and closed and reopened, and working from home and furlough and all of that. So a huge amounts of disruption. But then I'd say it's not all bad, because I think that they've learned to be agile. They've learned to be able to bounce back from this
Totally.
disruption, to overcome hurdles and challenges, and to solve problems that they could never have prepared for. So I'd like to think that the silver linings of all of this is that it has actually led them to build up their resilient stores.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned about them coming together in that area of socialization. That's been really challenging for some young apprentices or people stepping into the world of work, because they lost that as they finished school. And so I think for us, we're seeing that not just in terms of anxiety, but just having to speak to people all day, not on a screen, as you described. So yeah, very, very interesting to see that. I know for many organisations, particularly people like yourselves, where you employ very large numbers, you've had to adapt the way your business is operating post pandemic. Are there any main differences that you've seen in your area of the business?
Yeah, well, of course, the acceleration of hybrid and remote working has been a huge culture shift for everybody, Airbus included, and ways of working have changed significantly since 2 years. Some ways for the better. The acceleration of our digital capabilities to be able to communicate remotely has been, a good thing in some cases. It's enabled us to be able to be more connected and to be able to have the technology to do so, and to have this kind of almost to support some of the flexibility to be able to work from home and have a little bit more of a work-life balance in some cases. So it's not been all bad. But what I would say, particularly when it comes to early careers, they do need touch time with people. They're building up their networks. They're new to the organization. They need development time with people. They need mentoring and support. So as well as hybrid working having its perks and flexibility being one of them, it's also quite clear that early careers people actually want to be in the office. They want to meet people, they want to see other people, and they want that human connection and that support from day one, really. So we're trying as best as we can to help to facilitate that.
Yeah, and it's not easy, is it? I know for many organizations right now, that challenge of finding the right balance is quite difficult. So in early careers, your department, your area of expertise, would you say that's your biggest challenge at the moment, Emily, or is recruitment a challenge? What else is facing you?
Yeah, I think recruitment is always a challenge because we do recruit in quite high numbers. We're definitely looking for scarce skills, and whereas Airbus is hopefully known quite well, our brand is known as an engineering and aerospace manufacturing, it's not so well known for some of the other areas that we are looking to recruit in, particularly around the things like IT, computer science students, digital skills, which we're competing, not only with other engineering companies for those skills, but with pretty much every other company in the whole wide world that does want those skills as well. So that's a challenge for us, increasing our diversity, improving our inclusion, not just with gender, but with students from less from deprived backgrounds, for example. We want to increase our BAME percentages, and we're doing a lot of work with schools and young people and some of those key influencers to help support some of our objectives around inclusion. So that's one of our challenges. The landscape, the pace of technological change is a challenge, enabling and working closely with our education providers to make sure that we're collaborating with them on course content and curriculum content, to ensure that the education sector is able to keep up with the pace of technological change within organisations, and vice versa. So quite a few challenges, but it's very exciting times, and Airbus is in a very exciting place at the moment with regards new technologies around sustainability and decarbonisation of the industry and so on, which, if you're going to be joining an engineering company at any time, it's now, because there's such exciting things going on for our young people.
And I'm sure you mentioned about your education providers, and they must really relish the opportunity to work with you guys and to have that level of support and infrastructure behind them to help ensure the young people are better prepared for when they do choose a career with the likes of Airbus. Do you find that they're open and engaged to working with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely keeping those communication channels open with the education providers. We work really closely, and they are great, and they are really interested in, how they can not just enable our students and our learners to get through the technical academic part of the learning journey, but also to build them up as people, and some of those skills around being able to transition into the workplace to grow their confidence, to give them the communication skills and techniques that they might need. That's clearly on their agenda and one of their objectives that we work with them on. So yeah, we're getting really good support from them.
Great. And it is a different workplace. You mentioned about hybrid working, you mentioned about support that you're having to give to young people now. How are you preparing your line managers and your early career managers, as it were? Are you having to put a different level of training, support, management style into preparing them to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think, just going back to your point about the education providers, we're actually getting some of our line managers in the business to help support some of the curriculum delivery with the education providers. So they're getting involved in, looking at the course content and how it might relate, and advising on different points. And then from a sort of soft skills perspective as well, we're very fortunate at Airbus in that we have, excellent professional support from our occupational health team. We have an on-site occupational health team. They are great at helping to support some of the challenging cases that we have around well-being and the pastoral care of our apprentices and young people. And then we're equipping our managers and helping to support our managers with all sorts of different training, things like dignity at work training, for example, personal brand, media training, so that our young people have a view on their own personal brand, image, perceptions, how they might be perceived in this world of social media and everything else. So we've adapted our ways of working, as well as on top of obviously the overriding thing with digital technology and hybrid working and being able to connect remotely. So yeah.
And are managers up for that, Emily? Are they really keen to get involved with the new changes?
They are, and we are really lucky in that our senior team in Airbus absolutely support the early careers programs. They are passionate about them. We've been through real challenging and tough times as an organisation, as an industry throughout the pandemic. As a result of that, we've had a voluntary release program. And the whole restructuring that's happened within the organisation means that we have lost a lot of skills and capabilities and knowledge out of the business. And I think the early careers programs are seen as the way that we're going to, really drive recovery as a company, including, not just the technical skills that they're bringing in with the digital capabilities that they have and those sorts of things, but this sort of the mindsets of young people as well, and the agility and the drive and the passion that they have to kind of push things forward and do things at speed and keep up with the pace of change, which, is great. The senior team are very supportive of our programs, fortunately.
Yeah, I remember chatting to one of your colleagues a few weeks back, and he definitely alluded to that the young apprentices that we were listening to were the future of Airbus, and so they needed to understand that as much as the managers needed to understand that. So yeah, it's a different place for them, I imagine, post-pandemic. So in terms of young people coming to Airbus, so once you've recruited them and they're in, have you had to do anything different to support that transition post-pandemic, or what would you say are your key drivers for transition when young people are joining you?
Well, it's a good question. I think initially it's making sure that they are armed with all the information, as much as the information as possible, to know what the working world is like, and that it is a different way of working from being in education, in full-time education. They need boundaries to an extent as well. Sometimes, setting out these are the rules around this is the rules around health and safety, and these are the reasons why it's important. Making sure that they're familiar with policy, making sure that they're familiar with simple things like working hours and what's expected of them. So boundaries are really, really important, and clarity around why rules and procedures might be there. So that's important. But at the same time, trying to engage with them and keep them motivated. And that really comes from proximity and FaceTime, and being able to have one-to-ones, being able to spend time so you get to know them as individuals and people, because every single one of them is unique. So my team are really good at making sure they have one-to-one time with those individuals when they're joining the organisation and throughout. Enabling them to have I would say meaningful and rewarding work is really, really important. We all want meaningful and rewarding work, but I think particularly where it comes to this generation, they're really interested in not just like the engineering side or the technical side, but actually, the bigger picture around things like, how does my day job connect with the purpose of the organization, and how does the purpose of the organization connect with real world problems such as climate change or whatever. So making sure that they feel connected to the vision of the organization, and that the objectives of the company are clear, and how their bit of that fits into the whole piece. I think that's really important with the transition into the company.
That's fantastic. And I think that is so important for young people to not feel they're just at the bottom of an organization, but to feel that they're very much, you know, an integral part of that organization. So yeah, I think that is something that more and more we need to be doing as good employees. Just in terms of things that you would recommend a young person needs to do. So they're leaving school these days, or they've just left education or college or whatever it might be. And they've decided that early careers is the route they want to go down. So they're considering an apprenticeship somewhere, or a graduate scheme, etc. In order to give themselves the very best start at anywhere, but obviously from your experience at Airbus, what would you say the top 3 things someone needs to do?
Do you know, I love this question, and I know you sent me a few notes yesterday to prepare for this this session. And what I thought with this one is I'd actually go out to the learners and get their thoughts on that. So great. I did that, and I got a few ideas coming back, and there were definitely themes. And if we tried to sort of pinpoint 3, one of them was about you know, using your interests to the best you can whilst you have the time. So if you've got a summer period, you know, travel, do stuff that's outside of your comfort zone, you know, get involved in hobbies, get involved in something, engage with different people. Ideally, if you can travel, get you know, immersed in different cultures, which will help you, especially when working for someone like Airbus, where we have multinational teams and communicating with such a wide variety of people. So that was one. Work as well. So if you do get the opportunity to work beforehand, irrespective of the setting, you know, even if it's voluntary work as well, that came across quite a lot from the apprentices that came back to me, that they'd got involved in doing some voluntary work, which is great because it just helps you adjust to the workplace and the sort of structures that you'll face when you join Airbus. The third one was keeping up to date with Airbus news. So, like, you know, put your Google alerts on for things that might be, you know, you might want to get notifications for about what's happening with Airbus, what the picture is. So just to grow your understanding of the organization that you're due to join, so that you've got a really good understanding and you can get yourself excited for the times that you're going to be a part of. And I know that it was, you asked for 3, but I think from a 4th perspective, it was also a bit about have a rest as well. You know, it is going to be crazy busy. You will, especially when it comes to apprenticeships. I mean, I have every respect for apprentices. They work so hard with, you know, trying to fit in the work, the study, the NVQ, the day job, the dissertations. You know, it is not easy. It's not an easy ride, and you know, it's a chance to just recharge your batteries, rest, reflect, so that you can go into that transition when you start in your organization with, you know, fresh eyes and a rested mind and body. So yeah, that came across quite strongly as well.
Fascinating. That's really good, and thank you for doing that, because that's great to hear it direct from the apprentices themselves. And I think that final one, you know, is important when they're trying to balance everything that's involved within an apprenticeship, as you say. It's also important that they have time for themselves and to do something for their own, you know, mental health and well-being, and be that socializing or whatever. But it can't just all be about the work ethic part of it, can it? So yeah, that was really great to hear. Well, Emily, it's been really lovely to have a chat with you around our campfire. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Bye.